Hello and welcome to the iDMS training webinar today. I am going to be your co-host, JT Fiedler, and I am the product and sales advisor here at CSI. And I'm joined with Doug Morris, who is the founder and chief product officer here at CSI. So just quickly looking at what we're going to be discussing, we have a little CSI update, then just briefly reviewing the core iDMS functionality, diving into the different use cases and action items you can use with the product, some common questions we see, iDMS best practices, and then with whatever time is remaining, we will open it up for Q&A. So,
hey, JT.
Yes.
I took out the common questions we see. I thought they were stupid. I just want you to know that.
All right, well, then the agenda slightly changed, but no worries. But Doug, you founded this company. Tell us a little bit about your vision.
We always sort of had this vision. We never really inked it until recently. But, we always wanted to help your members and your donors, if you will. But really what we've been doing the whole time is not only helping them, but helping you as well. You work in the not-for-profit world as well. We don't have any not-for-profits that we work with that do bad things. Every organization that I know of has a noble cause. And the fact is that whereas the members and donors deserve plenty of love, so do you, right? So we want to make your lives better as well. And that's one of the reasons we write our products, so that your day at work is as enjoyable and productive as possible. So, JT.
Yes.
Oh, I guess this is my slide. It says Doug. Is this me or you?
Take it away. You can do this.
I think you switched it on me. Just heads up, one of our longstanding applications, Outlook, which we have a regular one, and then we have what we call it CloudOne. The CloudOne both work with, the CloudOne works with 2017 and EMS. As well as a browser, just great way to save emails that your members are sending you into iMIS, as well as quick. I just need to send a quick email out to a committee. You can just, you sit in Outlook all day, you might as well have access to iMIS from Outlook. We came up with a cloud SSO that is very, very low cost. That's our way of, we always had this, well, I want to connect iMIS to something else, and oh, that's going to be a lot of money. We, once again, want to improve your lives. And if it costs you a ton of money to integrate with something, you're not going to be able to do it. iMIS is going to get a bad rap for being expensive. So we created a cloud SSO that we think is very reasonably priced and super powerful. CVent knocked on our door about 5 years ago and said, can you integrate? We got a lot of iMIS clients that need a more powerful event management system, and we want iMIS to talk to it. So we wrote that integration. And then JT's favorite product is our new text manager. That's just getting more powerful. There's stats on how often emails get open versus texts. And I realize you want to be a little cautious and respectful of your members and when you text them, but I think there's some real power. I know I personally, if NIOG were to text me right now and say, give us you're late on your dues, that would cause me, especially if there was a link there, I'd renew right then and there because I wouldn't be embarrassed that I had lapsed. So great app for sending out those quick little, hey, you're late on your dues, or hey, our event early bird registration is ending soon. Hurry up and register. Things like that, judicious use of text we think is super powerful. And what do we got, JT?
Yes. We are excited to introduce the iMIS Power Automate connector. Doug, tell us a bit about what people are going to be able to do with iMIS now.
So if you have iMIS, you can basically connect it to almost anything out there. Anybody that's created a Power Automate connector, including iMIS, and these are some of those. So just imagine being able to have someone finish a Dropbox. They've dropped something in Dropbox to be notified about it. What about DocuSign? Someone finishes something you ask them to sign and you get notification in iMIS. All sorts of fun things you can do here. We're still learning about all the fun things that we can now connect iMIS to. It's really kind of cool. We'll be having more on this. This product is being released in beta right now. We're looking for early adopters who want to play around with it, and we'll tell you how to contact us later in the webinar. But enough of that.
Yes, let's jump into things. So just quickly touching on the core functionality of iDMS and what makes up the suite. So the first module is iImport. So this is where you have a spreadsheet of data that you want to insert, update, or delete in iMIS. The second one is iUpdate. This is where you have the same functionality as you had with iImport. However, this is where your data already lives in iMIS, and you're going to be using an IQA query to identify those records that you want to update, delete, or even insert data to. The powerful module of iSchedule gives you the ability to schedule either off hours or on a recurring basis your imports and updates. And then the last module that's a little bit on the geekier side is iTransfer. And this gives you the ability to easily transfer data to and from iMIS between your third parties. And I do want to mention that iTransfer will not be covered in this training session because it is a bit more advanced and technical, where we will have a separate training for that down the road.
All right, let's jump into inserting. Okay, when we're going to use insert, think about it. It's just really easy. It's the ability to insert new data in iMIS. When you use it, well, when you have new contacts to insert, or when you have new data other than contacts and you have the iMIS ID. So the contact is already there and you know what ID you're inserting this data to. Or even if you're on EMS, the fancy new single instance panel, that should say standalone panel, JT. We got to fix that. Australia, if you join us for our Australian webinar tonight, that'll say standalone panel, right, JT? And so JT's adding notes. So inserting into a standalone panel. So this is where you're just inserting data in iMIS. You know what record it's going on to, or a standalone panel. I got new contacts, or I want to put activities in, or subscriptions, or I want to insert billing payments, gifts, or even a gen lookup table. So this is really where in any one of these, I would know the ID or the record that they belonged on. So that's insert's pretty straightforward, but you have to know what record it's going to. Heads up, billing payments and gifts, they are insert only. They cannot be updated or deleted or anything like that. It's just insert only on those two. Next up is insert with matching. This really says, gosh, I have data that I need to insert in iMIS, but I need to match it to a record in iMIS. I don't have the ID, okay? I can match on other things, and we'll talk about what those are. For instance, maybe the contact record's already there, but I don't have the ID, and I'm bringing in something other than a contact. So a great example is activities or subscriptions, right? In this kind of case, maybe I don't have the ID. Maybe my volunteer has given me a list of activities to be brought in, and they erase the ID column, and all they did was give me first name, last name, and email address. Well, I can match that data to the specific record in iMIS, and then I can insert it. So this says we're going to be inserting data in iMIS, but we need to match on something other than ID. Remember, we always recommend, if possible, match on multiple fields, okay? I really don't want to do an insert with matching to match on just last name. If my data had Smith in it, every record that has a last name of Smith is going to get an activity added to it. It's probably not what you want. So we always like the combination of email and last name, and we'll show you how to do this in a minute. A lot of clients are using this for major key. We get a lot of questions like, hey, I've got major key. And if you're not familiar with major key in iMIS, it's a cool little thing you can turn on that says, well, here, I will date myself. In the old days of iMIS, the major key was also, if you live in the US, the person's social security number. If that doesn't scare you, nothing will. So you would say, well, gosh, I don't know JT's ID, but I know his social security number, and we'd match on that. So a lot of customers use major key as another field that is unique. So sometimes we'll match on major key or major key and last name. You might say, well, I don't have email address, but I have last name, I have a postal code, and maybe I have some demographic field. The more things I can match on, the better my insert is going to be. Unfortunately, we can only match on the entire field at this time. So if you have last name and it's, D Morris, DEMORRIS, and there's a space in there in iMIS, but not in my spreadsheet, it's not going to work. And you cannot match on address at this time, user credentials, user roles, or communication preferences. JT,
Yes.
started talking.
The next action item is update. So this is where your data lives in iMIS and you want to simply update or make changes to it. You would use this action item when you want to update data that's already in iMIS, or you have some way to identify the records you want to update, whether that's spreadsheet or an IQA. And then some use cases. These are two basic use cases, but if you want to update any demographic information or anything like that on an iMIS record, or you want to update contact information, so you want to update their member type or their paid through date, all of that is where you would utilize the update functionality.
So we made it even better. We added something called insert update. And this says, well, my data, here's the best way to put it. My data may or may not be an iMIS. Someone hands me a whole bunch of prospect records. They may or may not be an iMIS. Those prospects could even be members. Well, I don't want to insert a duplicate, so I only want to insert the ones that are not already there. So you think about this. This is when you want to insert or update records at the same time, or just insert new records, but ignore existing. This is a new feature we added before. We're going to show you. But basically, you have the ability to go, look, I have a set of data. It has all new data in it, I think. If you find a duplicate during insert, just ignore it. Don't go update my perfect iMIS data. So use cases, hey, here's a spreadsheet of everybody that went to the event. Well, are they all in iMIS? Yeah, if they're not, insert them. But no matter what, add that new activity to all of them. We see this a lot. Here's a list of gifts from people that came, whatever gave via a third-party application. I don't know if the people are in iMIS. I know the gifts aren't. The people may or may not be on iMIS. So insert them if they're not in iMIS, and then add their gift. Now it gets fun.
Yes, moving on to the last action item you can use with iDMS is the delete functionality. Now, this is very powerful. We used to have a slide that would say the power behind delete was you could ruin your day, you could ruin your database administrator's day, and you can just ruin iMIS. So it's very powerful. So you have to be very careful when utilizing this function. But you would utilize the delete functionality when you want to delete data from panel sources, activities, relationships, user credentials, and even general lookup tables. So some use cases we see clients using it for is deleting activities, deleting data in panels. So they're storing data in panels so they can use it in iMIS. And then once they're done with it, they will delete it. And then we like to say that it is the relationship killer. You can delete relationships that are in iMIS.
So I'll give you some examples. A perfect example of deleting activities. Say you're using the data management suite and you accidentally import 10,000 activities that you didn't mean to. You can now use the iMIS data management suite to delete those activities before your boss finds out that you did that. When we talk about deleting data in panels, we're talking about the entire row, if you will. Okay, this is not erasing a field. We're going to use update for that. This is actually deleting the entire record in a multi-instance or standalone panel. Give you a great example. We have people bring data into standalone tables. Now what they want to do is take that data from that standalone table and push it to other areas of iMIS. And when they're done, they want to erase that standalone table. Well, you can do that. And as JT says, you can terminate relationships. I don't think we have anybody using it for that. It just sounds fun to say. But JT, I don't see customer on here or name.
Yes, you do not have the ability to delete contact data. Once development went in and kind of explored that of having it in the product, it just left the record floating out there. It just deleted name. So what you can do today with the product is mark contacts for erasure using the update functionality, and that way iMIS will be able to handle that process. Now, we don't want to forget about iUpdate. So remember, iUpdate uses an IQA query as your data source, not a spreadsheet. How we see most people utilizing it is to update records with various information or even delete records. You can also use it to insert new data to an iMIS record. So in this example, create an activity for everyone who wants to call, or even pre-populate a panel source with specific data or something along those lines that meets certain criteria. Now, Doug, as we transition to more of a cloud-friendly world, how can SQL users utilize iDMS to replicate some of those same processes they're used to?
Great question, JT. So we had this the other day from one of my favorite people at ASI. She doesn't know it, but she is favorite. She's just always challenging us and really smart. And she said, hey, I know how to do stuff in SQL, but, we're in a non-SQL world now. And so I want to be able to do this using the data management suite. And I'm going to make up her example, but her example was, I need to update my demographics panel, and I want to set the occupation to be engineer when it was mistakenly put in as ENG. So find every occupation that says ENG and change it to engineer. Now, if you know SQL, there's the statement to do it, right? It's really easy. And we have a where clause, but there's no ID in it, right? The paradigm shift, if you will, with iDMS is I need to know what records have this. So I've got to have the ID of the demographics that have this mistake. So there's one extra step, right? And that's our select statement, if you will. And that is our IQA. So here we go. We're going to create an IQA, and you can see it right here. We're looking where the occupation is equal to ENG. So this IQA is going to return records where the occupation is set to ENG. Cool. That's my where here. Got that. But we need one more thing in our IQA. That IQA, because we're updating a single instance panel, needs to return the ID. If I was doing a multi-instance panel, I think it's called ordinal or something like that. It used to be called sequence, but it's called ordinal. But in this case, my IQA just needs to tell me what IDs need to be updated. So I'm using the IQA to say, hey, Doug, or hey, iDMS, here are the records we want to change. And then we're going to do it with iDMS. And I'll walk you through this in a minute, but it looks like this. We're going to do our match on. So we're doing an update, right? We're doing an update because we're updating that field. And we're going and saying on the panel source called demographics, match on the ID that's coming from my IQA. That's saying to iDMS, this is the record I want to update. Next, we're going to go in there and say, oh, that should say occupation, but I wrote degree, my bad. And we're setting it to engineering. We're not matching on that. Now, notice the input. I'm hard coding this. That engineering output could be in my IQA. I could have had engineering appear in there. I could do whatever I want, but in this case, I'm just hard coding it. And we could even do it with a prompt. But before we do that, let's just go into the data management suite. Let's get real here, right? And we're going to do it live. Here's my IQA. I'm going to go to my training, if you will, here. And my training IQA, here's my update occupation. And if we look at that IQA, hopefully you know how to write an IQA. If you don't, ASI's got some great videos. I'm looking at the demographics business object. My filter says where the occupation is equal to ENG. I only need the ID displayed. Are there any records I need to update? Yeah, there are a lot. Now, if you're like, whoa, that just looks weird, Doug. That's okay. You can go out here and you could say, show me that occupation as well. I'm not going to use it, but I can go ahead and show it as well. And I'm going to hit run. And I can see, okay, every one of these records that are out here have ENG in the occupation. And I don't want that. I want to change those all to engineering. So very straightforward, right? We're going to use iUpdate because my data source is coming from an IQA. If you don't have iUpdate, you can go right here and you could export this data and then use iImport to do the fix. But I'm going to go iUpdate and I'm going to select that IQA. And it's down here under CSI and it's down here under training. And here it is, update occupation. And you will see it says where the occupation is equal to ENG. Yep, that's what I want. There are 2 columns in my IQA. I really only need 1. I'm going to update my data in iMIS. Now I'm going to add my mapping, right? I have to tell iDMS what records I want to update. So I'm going to go right to panel sources. Now, by the way, if you're going to be doing this with a couple different records, you can map on contact ID. That's okay. It will auto join. So I can do this. I can do contact ID and match on. Whoops, I got to choose my ID from my IQA. I can start with contact. And if it makes you feel better, you can do that, right? iDMS is smart enough to auto join contact to whatever else I do. So I'm going to hit save. And now, hey, it says, hey, heads up, you're only matching on 1 field. Do you know what you're doing? Yeah, ID happens to be unique. I get it. So I know what I'm doing. And then you get the warning, just be careful, right? We're just trying to warn you. I'm going to go back to add mapping. And now I'm going to go over to my panel source. And this could be my user defined table or something else like that. And I'm going to find my demographics. And here's my demographics. And I want to change my occupation. And I want to change it to engineering. So I found all my records where it said ENG. And now I'm saying engineering. Do I match on that? No way. I'm not matching on engineering. I already got my IDs. Save. So notice this little trick. I used contact. I could have gone to demographics and done the iMIS ID, but there's no harm in just using contact. That key is the important thing, right? We are matching on something. And remember, I would never, ever do this if it was a multi-instance table. I'd need another field. I'm going to hit submit. I haven't tried this, by the way, but we're going to see how it works. We have some cool features here we're going to talk about in one of the demos that I do in about 10 minutes. I like this skip update if more than 1 record found. If you're not sure what you're doing, do that, right? That says I'm only going to update 1 record per row of my IQA. Great. The other thing here is automatically continue on error. Do you want it to stop if there's an error or keep going? And I want it to continue. All right. So we're going to, this right here says, hey, you're going out there and you're giving me IDs that may or may not be in the demographics panel. I'm going to create a record in that demographics panel if you tell me to update it. So I'm going to say continue. I haven't tried this, by the way. JT just made the ones here. And here we go. It is going out there and now finding every one of those records that had ENG in them. And it is changing that to engineering. So that's how easy it is to do an update like that. But remember, we can support prompts. So, you know, when you're writing a SQL, you can change the where clause anytime you want. GT, that's supposed to say required. We talked about that. Now it's stuck in people's mind, but we don't want to do that. Let's go back and really be cool here. I'm going to take my update occupation. I'm going to edit that. I'm going to go to my filter and I'm going to say, oops, here we go, prompt required. Okay. Now I'm going to say enter occupation. All right. I'm going to hit refresh. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to take that out. One more time, refresh. So what's going to happen is this IQA, if I run it, says enter occupation. Well, remember I got rid of ENG, but guess what? There's engineering, find. Hey, those are the records we just updated. Cool, I've made my IQA have a prompt. Now, think about how powerful this is if you're a DBA. You need to go and someone says, Doug, you know that engineering update you did? I need them all switched back to ENG. We made a mistake. Okay, iUpdate. Gonna go find that query again. I'm gonna run it. I don't know why it says optional. There we go. What's the occupation? I'm looking for engineering. Now, instead of having that hard coded in my IQA, I'm using iDMS with the prompts that are built into the IQA. I'm going to look for engineering. I'm going to go to update. I'm going to do the same thing I did before, but I'm going to be a little different. I'm going to go to panel sources. I'm going to go back down to demographics. I'm going to match on the ID that's coming from my IQA. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to add another mapping. I'm going to now go and say, take my occupation and put it back to ENG, please. This will work good for our demo later tonight, JT. And hit save. I've used the prompt feature that's in iMIS, in iDMS, and I'm going to go out there and undo everything I just did. I'm actually running this and switching them all back to ENG. If I wanted to run it again and look for ENG and switch it to engineer, I could do that as well. So super powerful. Use the prompt features that are built in just to make your life easier. Okay, this is important. The other thing we want to cover in this training is that your IQA, once again, you saw it returned every record that we wanted to update. We can't stress how important it is to only update records that need updating. The example I came up with this morning is the field degrees. And I want to erase or clear out every degree in iMIS. If something is in the degree field, I want it erased. Well, I could go and make an IQA that returned every ID in iMIS and then just go erase the degree field for every ID in iMIS. If you have a database of 50,000 records, that means that's 50,000 updates. So we want you to make your queries efficient. In this case, I would do a filter and say where degree is not empty, because I only want to erase it if there's something in there. If it's already blank, I don't want to update it. The other tip is if you're going to get results in your IQA that might be duplicated, you're going to have iDMS do double the work. And that's just going to take time and slow down. And it's going to raise our Azure bill, which means we're going to have to raise the price of iDMS, and nobody wants that. So save the world by clicking this, ticking this checkbox, only display unique results. This makes sure that the results that are coming back from your IQA are unique. It's a powerful thing to do. It can't really hurt most times unless you are looking for duplicates. So we always say this is a good idea. Part of the reason we tell you that is the iMIS API. It likes to read IQAs a little differently than they're displayed. And if you don't do this, it gets confused. So always choose unique results when you can have that. All right. Here we go. we're going to use insert update. One of the things we talked about in the little things that we were trying to get you to sign on for was, hey, you can do multiple things in iMIS. You can insert and update records while inserting other things. So here's a great example. I have some GIFs and I want to import them. The GIFs are new, but the name records might or might not be new. And so we're going to do it. I've got a file out here. I'm going to use iImport now because I have a file of donations that were given to me. All right. I'm going to jump over to that folder. And here are my donations. Let's look at them real quick. And it will always pop up on the screen that I'm not displaying. So just give it a minute. And of course it did. Here we go. Here are donations that were sent to me. You can see the data. I've got a date, a first name, a last name, some address information, a zip code, phone. I have the amount of their gift, how they paid for it, and their check number. Okay. What am I missing? I'm missing the iMIS ID. That's not good. So we're going to do open. We are now going to say we're going to be inserting new gifts, but we need to match on data. Or wait a minute. What if I wanted to actually insert new contacts and gifts? So I'm going to actually do an insert update here. So think about this. Insert with matching would mean, look, I know the records already exist in iMIS. I want to match to them and insert the gift. Insert update says, ooh, I'm going to do two things, right? I'm going to be updating and inserting, and I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to choose insert update. And now we're going to add our mapping. Well, the first thing we want to do is find the contact record that hopefully exists out there already. So we are going to go out here and I want to find based on the email address that is in my spreadsheet, right? So that's important. I'm going to match on that. We always like to match on at least two fields. So I'm going to go to last name as well and match on that. Now, at this point, what if this is a new record? I need more of that data. So I'm going to bring in the first name. And so I'm going to hit first name here and first name here. And I'm not matching on that. And I'm going to bring in other things. Maybe I want to go ahead and bring in their spouse, right? I could do that as well. Maybe I want to bring in the address, the state, the zip, or something fun like that. I'm going to bring in phone number, right? Just to make this easy. So quick trick, you can click on the field here. And now you can just go right here and choose the phone that you're looking for. Maybe that's my mobile or my work. And you're done. So that's great. This is my contact, but I got to do my donation. The donation's important. So now we're going to go to add mapping. And we're going to go down to our donation, right? So we're going to hit fundraising. And we're going to say, what's the transaction date? And that is the date from my spreadsheet. So we're inserting this data now. What's next? I've got my gift item that I'm going to be bringing in, and that's going to jump over to my gift item ID. And next up, I've got my amount. That's kind of important. We need to know how much they gave. And finally, my payment method. You have to have this. This is going to be the payment method, which is normally going to be cash, if you will. And we're going to hit save. And then last but not least, we can put in the check number, which does not show an iMIS, so it was missing from an early version. So right now, what this says I'm going to be doing, okay, is I'm going to be inserting or updating contacts if they don't match. And then I'm going to be inserting a new gift. Well, hold on a minute. JT is supposed to remind me of this. What if I don't want to update any of the records in iMIS? I believe that my data in iMIS is really pristine. This says I do not want to update any of my name records. Only insert if they're not found. That's super powerful. That was added recently. And that we really like to use. Here's that skip update if more than one record found. What does that mean? What that means is if for some reason my last name and email in my spreadsheet match to more than one record in iMIS, I do not want to add a gift to each of those records. I got one gift for $100. There happens to be 2 JT Fiedlers in iMIS. They're a duplicate record. I do not want to add that gift to multiple records. So I'm going to skip the update if we find more than one record. I'm going to hit save. Now, JT's got a slide for this. If you get this darn spreadsheet on a regular basis, save this as a mapping so you don't have to do this ever again. If you hit save mapping, you can go out here and say monthly donation import. I'm going to write erase because I want that out of there. You can put a description in here, doing for the webinar, adding missing name records and all new donations. You can say something like skipping if more than one match found, anything like that. If this messes up, who do I want to notify? That's fine. I'll get an email if something goes terribly wrong. What's a great terribly wrong? You used a payment method set that wasn't defined in iMIS. Ooh, that's bad, right? I'm gonna hit save. I can reuse that anytime I want. I don't know if this is gonna work personally. It's a demo. It may fail. I might have missed something. JT's probably frantically messaging me something. Here's what's happening. Update matching on key fields, create a new record if no matching found. We're matching on email and last name. We're also sending first name and work phone, and we're putting gifts in. JT, how'd I do?
Good.
All right, if it fails, it's your fault. Here we go. It's going out there. It's reading my 26 rows in my spreadsheet. It is fine. Oh, it found a record. It found Robert's record, and it's going to now go ahead and add a gift to his record. And then it's going to go on. So it just created a gift. It's finding all the records. If any of these people were missing, it would say inserted a new name record. So this is really powerful. Remember, I'm doing an insert or an update, and then I'm doing an insert. So I'm doing multiple things at one time. Super powerful. This is fun. All right.
All right, shifting topics, automation with iDMS. So we have been seeing people utilize iUpdate and iSchedule to start to replace stored procedures as they plan their migration to iMIS EMS. And some specific examples we've seen is finding expired members and changing their member type on a scheduled basis. So having an IQA find all of the records marked as member, but they're paid throughs in the past, we obviously want to update their member type to the correct one so they don't get those member benefits. Another one is unlocking user accounts. So we have people that instead of getting phone calls to headquarters to unlock their account, they have a job that runs once an hour to unlock all user accounts that have locked themselves out, so then they can try and log in again in the hour. Utilizing roles to replace dynamic groups in iMIS. So dynamic groups update once a day. And so we have seen people utilize the roles aspect in iMIS to update those once an hour. So it's more up-to-date data. Another powerful one is tracking membership statistics and putting it on a panel. And we're seeing more and more people track the counts of their members and doing future reporting on it or trend analysis. And a common thing is how many members did we have last week compared to this week? So it's very good for additional insights and reporting. And then because you schedule jobs, you can have reports based on certain criteria to run automatically and populate data somewhere. So there's no staff intervention needed. That allows you to free up time so they can focus on what they do best. Now, I quickly just talked about what we've seen, but if you go to our docs.csiinc.com, you will be able to look at some video tutorials we have on certain use cases we've seen that are popular in demand. So how you would do that is you would select the apps, then you would navigate over to the iMIS Data Management Suite, and then there is a tab in there for the iDMS video tutorials. So those are just short videos that Doug is pulling up now of how to get there. But it's just short YouTube videos on how to do certain aspects while using the iMIS data management suite. So you'll notice replacing dynamic groups, adding an activity and updating a record. So different use cases that you can kind of follow along and implement in your own instance. Now, Doug touched on this briefly, but templates are very powerful. So if you get a spreadsheet that's in the same layout on a recurring basis, you should utilize templates. It's a great way to save time if you're processing an import or an update. It also eliminates human error. It's going to be consistent. And then you also don't need to be on the IT team within your organization to create them. We saw Doug create a template for the gifts and donations received, and it's simply just doing the mappings and naming the template. So then once you do get that file again, you just load it, you load the mappings, and then you hit go. We are going to be doing sample templates, kind of walking you through what we show in webinars or demos, so you can actually implement that in your own iMIS instances. So that is coming soon. Now, Doug, talk a little bit about the differences with iDMS if they're on iMIS 2017 versus if they are on iMIS EMS. And you're muted.
One of the cool things that you can do with 2017 is you can get directly to tables. What we always recommend you do is don't use the built-in table in iMIS. So I'm sorry, the built-in object. Don't use CS subscriptions if you need to update subscriptions. Create your own. The CS ones have some built-in logic to them. But I'll tell you this, if you talk about CS subscriptions or CS activities or anything like that, ASI truly doesn't love you touching those, right? They kind of like, you have to know what you're doing, and you lose the ability to get directly to those built-in business objects in EMS. But because you can still get to them, you can do some things with 2017 that you can't do with EMS. So if you need to update subscriptions, you use your subscriptions business object. If you need to unlock user accounts, you'd use the user data business object. These are very powerful things that you can do with 2017 because you have access still to the underlying tables, right? The ASI's on this right now, they're going crazy, right? But in 2017, that's the most powerful thing. You can use user-defined tables as well. In EMS, you have the ability to create credentials. You can't do that in 2017. You can assign user roles. You can bring in billing payments, cash and accrual, super powerful. And we just added the ability to bring in products, billing, gift, and just regular ones. So you can bring in products as well. So some really cool things you can do with EMS and some really cool things you can do with 2017. As we all know, the future is EMS. So that's really where we're focusing a lot of our effort there. Now, we're going to talk about some last best practices that JT has learned the hard way in all of his demos.
Yes. So best practice number one is to test your import. So you should test your mappings with just a small subset of the data in your file. So instead of just hitting go on hundreds of records, you copy and paste the headers and maybe the first 2 rows of data. So then you only have 1 to 2 records to potentially fix. And I know this personally, I've ruined 1 record in our database because I did not match on enough fields. So if I would have done just the 1 record, it would have saved a lot of time. And then have a good business process for using iDMS. So the first one is have a clear structure with your process while using iDMS. So run them in the proper order that makes sense. Also, make sure that everyone knows the process and they know how it works. And then last, assess that you are using the correct or best module or action item to accomplish the task you are looking to complete. So while you would maybe think delete is the best option, maybe update and erasing specific data is a better option. So understanding your business processes goes a long way. The third one, and this is a very unique kind of undo. So you can undo updates. How you would do this is the first step is create an IQA of the data that you are going to be updating. From there, you'll run it and then export that to a specific location that you can access. You would then perform the updates using iDMS iUpdate. And then because you exported that information, if you needed to revert back to what it previously was, you can then use iImport to bring that data back to how it was before you did the iUpdate.
So great example. You saw me updating a bunch of records to have ENG and then back to engineering. I could have created an IQA. Well, my first IQA, remember, it just had IDs in it. I could have had more data in it and then just exported that. That becomes a nice little backup in case I say match on the wrong fields or something like that. So JT does this all the time where he is going and experimenting with for demos and stuff like that. And he needs to put it back when he's done, right? So he's not making a mistake. He just wants to do an update and then he needs to put it back so his next demo looks good. So he'll go ahead and export it, do his update, and then bring it back in using iImport to put it as though it was never touched again. Remember, all these updates are logged and whatnot. So whenever you're doing updates using iDMS, it's calling the iMIS API. If you have those fields set to be logged, they will be logged as well. Got some cool stuff coming. Okay, this top one's geeky. I like it though, right? You're going to be able to use an IQA in iUpdate from a different database. Imagine how powerful this is. If you have access to 2 or more databases, say you have some chapters, you will be able to pull data from your chapters or push data to your chapters. Super, super powerful. Maybe you want to update your test iMIS and just push some data from live to test or vice versa. You'll be able to do that. Or say you're on 2017 and you want to migrate to EMS and you want to do it clean. You don't want to do an upgrade in place. You want to actually re-import all your data to EMS. You'll be able to do that with the product as well. Pull the data out of 2017 and write it to EMS in one step. By popular request, you will have the ability to pause iSchedule tasks. We have a solution provider in Australia that is driving me up a wall because they have my cell number, they have my WhatsApp, and they constantly say, like to pause tasks. Why are they pausing tasks? Well, they have stuff that just runs in January, say, and then they don't want that to ever run again. So they want to hit pause and then come back and reactivate it. You can do it in SQL. You'll be able to do it in iDMS. This is exciting. We get this request a lot. Hey, you bring in dues payments. Can you bring in OpenAR? I need to pay event registrations. I need to pay orders. You will be able to bring in OpenAR, including prepayments. We see this a lot. In fact, someone just said to me the other day, hey, I got a query of people. We want to give them $50 to spend any way they want. Can you bring that in as a prepayment? Yeah, you will be able to. And although I said late third quarter, it's progressing nicely. The ability to bring in event registrations is going to be there as well. This is not fun. You think about what an event is composed of. It's who registered, what they registered for, how much they paid, all these things. We'll be slowly rolling that out. So that's coming possibly late third quarter. Pretty excited about that. But not as excited as I'm about this.
Yes, remember that with your annual subscription, support is included at no additional charge. We have 3 full-time support staff here that are ready and open to helping you whenever you need it. So if you have any how-to questions, troubleshooting, or even I wish the product could do this, email support@csiinc.com, and one of those three individuals would reach out and assist you in whatever you need. So that is something that we pride ourselves on, of offering support at no additional charge. And I know Doug is big on that as well.
And look at how happy that lady is.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
But Doug, they sat through this. What gift do we have for them?
Cool. I don't know if you noticed the really cool screenshots I had of IQAs. They looked a little different. We participated in a hack day with ASI and some other solution providers, and we were fortunate enough to win first and second place. This is our second place award, and we call it the iMIS Experience Plus. It cleans up your IQAs, making them pretty. I don't know if you've ever done an IQA and added a filter and forgotten to hit that silly little plus button. You can't forget now. Notice the commit is the only thing you can hit now. You can't do anything else until you hit that commit. So that will save you a lot of screaming. There's some really cool ability to edit SQL. If you're adding SQL to your display, you can edit in line. That might be broken right now, depending what version of iMIS you're on. And so we're fixing that as well. It really makes it kind of fun to write IQAs, dare I say. And look at this review. Oh my God, JT from Bursting Silver. Thanks, JT. So how do you get it? It's a browser add-in. So if you are using Chrome, just search on the Chrome Web Store and type in iMIS. You don't need to type in iMIS Experience Plus. Just type in iMIS, and it is the only thing out there under iMIS Experience Plus, and just add that extension to Chrome. If you don't like it, delete it, okay? It's not going to poison you or anything. If you are on Edge, search for it. There's two different things that pop up under iMIS Experience, under iMIS. You want the one that says CSI. By the way, there is a way to take your Chrome add-ins and use them in Edge as well. You can Google that, but Edge has a store too, and we put it out there as well. These are free. Put them in, try them out, give us feedback, whatever. And one more thing we've decided to add based on popular demand.
Yes, we are going to open up a CSI product listserv. So this will give you the opportunity to collaborate with your peers and others using the product to get ideas on what you could potentially implement in your own system. So this is the link, and I will be sending this link out when I send out the recording. But once you join the product listserv, you'll get tips, tricks, and hear how others are actually utilizing the product. So very powerful things there.
I'm messaging you right now. That should be a CSI MS shortcut.
But with that, we would like to open it up to any questions on what you saw or what you're using the product for, anything along those lines.
While you're thinking about that, remember support@csiinc.com. You can give us, hey, that was great. Loved your demo. I really wish the product did this. Anything you send to support goes to eventually me, and we evaluate it to be added to the product. So great example. Hey, Doug, could you bring in OpenAR? The first time I saw it, I went, eh. Second time I saw it, I went, uh-oh. Third time I went, uh-oh, we got to add this, right? So the more times I see a request that comes in that makes sense and is doable, the better chance it'll be. I get some crazy requests, and sometimes the answer is, yeah, do you want to pay for that? Because nobody else wants it. But that's pretty rare. We add a lot of these support requests on here. I know there's some solution providers on here who have given us great feedback that we've added to the product. You know, the more you tell us to add, the more we will add. We just need to know about it. You know, you guys are using it day in and day out. If you saw something that you don't, or you want to know more about, JT can be reached at sales@csiinc.com. So that's there. And then please don't forget, all of our documentation is here. Although I showed you the video tutorials, you can, of course, go and see all of our, whoops, that's not it. We'll just do it the hard way. We'll go docs.csiinc.com, and under apps, we have documentation for all of our apps. And if you go to one of them, you can search it. So you might want to say donations. I'm not going to hit search because watch, we don't have that. I'm going to do it anyway. Donations, here it is. In iDMS, oh, in progress. That's even fun. So you can go and search everything you need to in our stuff like that. So we do have a question. Does iSchedule work only on time-based, or can they trigger based on table insert update? iSchedule does only work on time, but the new Power Automate connector does work on triggers. So the Power Automate connector can be triggered when something happens in iMIS. And I will tell you how. We have one client looking into doing that. They're triggering and writing to a standalone panel and saying, hey, this has happened. And then the data management suite is picking up from there and doing a whole bunch of work. I'll be honest with you, the new Power Automate connector can actually replace the data management suite if you're a programmer. It is a lot more work to do what you see. The data management suite makes it easier, but the Power Automate connector does work on triggered events. I will say this also, ASI is working on something called webhooks. If you've ever heard of that, a webhook is a triggered event, and our Power Automate connector will support that natively when it comes out. And I hear that's impending. And we will look at the webhooks will also be able to call iDMS jobs. So just the last thing I'll point out is an iDMS job can be called by a third party today, right now. So that's really powerful as well. So you can call it remotely, if that makes sense. So I can have a job that's not scheduled that's called via a third party. Hope that helps and didn't confuse. All right, maybe we'll get more questions tonight. We are doing this webinar again tonight. If you're interested and you're like, gosh, I got to have more of JT and Doug, it's csiinc.com. And then from there, under resources, events, you can go to the AP region. The time's going to look a little weird, but we do these twice a day. The other one will be tomorrow morning in Australia, which is always fun. So we have to adjust all of our wordings, and all the Z's or Z's disappear and turn into S's. But I want to thank you all for the last 58 minutes of your time. Appreciate you on this. Remember, use the support. That's what it's there for. Thank you very much.
Doug, we do have some questions now come in.
Got it. All right.
Do you have them, or do you want me to read them?
I see them, JT. I'm going to take the easy one. iMIS Experience Plus to Chrome, right? So we go, I'm in Chrome, and I say, I just like to do Chrome add in. If you just do that. And then you go right here, extensions, Chrome Web Store. And then you search for iMIS. There it is. You would just add that. Mine already is added. Next question, can we ingest a CSV from an FTP server on a recurring basis to insert update records in iMIS? You can do that with the Power Automate connector. Jake just did a demo of Power Automate for ASI, believe it or not. And what he did was he took a file and he dropped it into either, was it a Google Drive or where was it? It was a OneDrive. He dropped it into OneDrive. The Power Automate connector for Microsoft can pull that, and it said, ooh, I have a new file. It grabbed that file. Our Power Automate connector then read through the file line by line and added that data to iMIS. That could be written to a standalone panel. It could be written right to contact record and what. So our data, our Power Automate connector is the tool that you would use to pull data from large amounts of data, say a spreadsheet, from the world into iMIS. iTransfer will handle it on a one-off basis. It'll go ahead and write activities or standalone panels. So we do have clients that also do that today. They're using Microsoft Forms or JotForm, and anything that's filled out there is written to a standalone panel. So we have a lot of different ways to do that. If you email JT at sales@csiinc.com, he will get you the deets on that and any kind of information there. Last minute questions. I like them.
All righty. Well, that is all the questions I see. Feel free, if more questions do pop up, then how do we
Purchase.
purchase this program?
There you go, JT.
If you want to send me an email at sales@csiinc.com, I'll be able to get you some pricing and information.
That's the best question yet. Give him a discount.
Well, with that, we appreciate your time and we hope that you learned something new today.
Thank you.
Thanks.